Hey everyone, Dr. Frunkey here with a fun new knife comparison video. I have two knives in front of us, two titanium frame lock flippers that have come to me from halfway around the world. Both of these knives have interesting stories, and both of them are pretty well traveled, better traveled than I've been in the last little while for sure. In front of us we've got the Shirogorov Hati. This is essentially the carbon fiber version of the 95, the model 95 that they make. This comes to us all the way from Moscow, Russia, with some components being built in China. Fantastic knife that actually was owned for a brief period by the great Nick Shabazz. If you watch my channel, hopefully you follow his videos. He had a few on this beautiful, beautiful blade, and he did a great job reviewing it and going into the details and the finer points of this knife. Next to him is a knife that comes to us by way of China. This is the Liong Mah Tempest in carbon fiber. This knife is produced by Riot Knives, which is out of China, and this is really a beautiful, beautiful knife, and it exemplifies the kind of quality and consistency that is starting to come out of some of these Chinese factories that are making these sort of limited production, high quality blades. So let's go ahead and talk about the sort of objective differences between these two blades. Well, really the objective similarities. Both, as I mentioned before, are titanium frame lock flippers. They have very similar design philosophies in that sense. Steel lock bar inserts, milled titanium pocket clips, high quality steel blades. They both have very nice carbon fiber front scales, different in their own ways. So let's break each knife down and compare them and talk about them individually here. So the Shirogorov, as I said, comes to us from Russia. It's got this really, really nicely milled carbon fiber scale. It's got the seashell pattern on it. It's got a nice little bit of texture to it. So in all of your functions, you've got a nice grip. When you want to flip the knife, see how those milling lines kind of flow up towards the flipper there? Your thumb has a nice grip on it, and you're able to fire the blade out. Now, speaking of firing the blade out, this thing is about as smooth as any knife I've ever felt, ever. It runs on phosphor bronze washers, and it just fires incredibly smoothly. Now, I know that Nick Shabazz did a little bit of a job on the washers and polished them and oiled them a little bit, but I know that from the factory these things also come crazy smooth. The blade is done in S30V steel, which you can see there, and it is an absolutely functional and beautiful full flat grind done in a nice uniform stonewash finish. It's got a nice flat area here and then a nice amount of belly as it goes up towards the top. It's not overly aggressive or overly tactical looking. This is certainly a gentleman's carry. It's very tastefully done. It's not outlandish or aggressive appearing. The backside here with the titanium frame is rather simple. It's got some unique design parts, including the pocket clip here that's 3D milled. It's got a nice texture to it. It functions very well. It's wide enough that you can get it into most pants without much of an issue. The cutout is a little bit unique. Not a lot of knives have a milling cutout like this, where it's milled on the inside and on the outside like that. The steel lock bar insert and the hole for the detent ball. We've got a circular pivot. I haven't disassembled this knife. I feel sure that it's fixed in there in some way to keep it from freely rotating. And we've got the Shirogorov custom hardware on the back and the sides here. These can be opened using maybe a penny or another coin that's softer than titanium. Just a word to the wise, don't use heavy steel screwdrivers on your titanium hardware, as Dr. Frunkey learned the hard way on his 0392 BRN GLD. He put a little dent in the screw there trying to be a hero and use a steel screwdriver. That was stupid. But those were earlier days, and we learned from our mistakes. So, the Hati, I think its #1 claim to fame is going to be its smoothness. I really have not experienced another knife that feels like this, especially one that rides on washers. It feels, the best way I can describe it is hydraulic. I think that some people describe the Sebenza that way. I think this knife really fits that description much better than the Sebenza in terms of the hydraulic feeling. I can't quite explain it, but it is a continuous low amount of friction that you feel as you move the blade up and down. Really, really nice knife. Functions really well. It's very EDC friendly. That full flat grind on the blade really allows it to be a nice slicer. And the blade shape is very good for almost all regular cutting tasks, from everyday small cutting to food prep and other uses. The blade stock is not so thick that it's going to break through things like an apple, and really just a nice knife. So let's move on to his competition here, the Liong Mah Tempest in carbon fiber. Now, this has one of the most gorgeous carbon fiber scales that I think I've ever seen. I'm going to try to get that fiber to dance in the light there. You can see just how it reflects the light, and I could just stare into this for hours and just be entertained. It's 3D milled in a slightly different way than the Hati is. The Hati has that nice patterning. This is actually 3D contoured, and it's got milling that basically matches the milling that's on the titanium scale. It's kind of hard to see on the camera, but if you can pick up these milling lines, that's essentially what you've got on this side as well. We've got now a ball bearing pivot rather than phosphor bronze washers. This knife is also very smooth, but it has a much stronger detent and a much higher level of tension on the lock bar. So the function is smooth in its own way, but not frictionless like the Hati feels like. Here we've got a 3.5-inch blade of S35 VN steel. This was 3.875 inches, so a little bit longer blade on the Hati. This one comes in with a sort of modified Persian blade shape. This is a flat swedge, or flat right here, rather than an upswept tip like that, but the upswept part of the blade makes it essentially a Persian style blade. Really beautiful horizontal satin done on the flats, very heavy and uniform stonewash done on these primary bevels and the top swedge. Comes out to a very fine tip. Would be excellent for piercing tasks. I might be afraid of breaking that tip if I was too aggressive with it, but probably wouldn't use it in that way. Really nice for EDC tasks, great slicer, great paper cutter, great box cutter with that long belly right there. A little difference between the two blades is the jimping. The jimping on this blade is fairly active. You can get your thumb to lock into it pretty well. The jimping here on the Hati leaves a little bit to be desired. It's there, but my finger doesn't really lock into it in the same way. I can still slide up and down. I can get a little bit of traction, but not a whole lot. Back to the Torrent here. Another nice thing about this knife is the milling on the titanium side. As if you watched my video on this, I really love the way that they have left those fine milling lines on the titanium frame, and it just shows how much effort went into making this knife. Each little pass of the mill, and how intricate the programming and the design was here. Another neat little aesthetic thing here is that the clip matches the shape of the blade. Now, for better or for worse, that really makes it more of an aesthetic effect rather than a true functional effect. In my EDC, this was a bit too sharp for me. I kept poking my finger on it when I was trying to put it in and out of the pocket, because I like to grab the tip of the clip when I'm putting that in the pocket. So the Hati suffers from that slightly as well. It's got a bit of an aggressive tip on it, but not nearly as bad as the Tempest over here. Both of them have unique hardware. Shirogorov has this awesome large hardware going on, unique with its sort of flathead design. The Riot knife has the very beautiful titanium, blue titanium hardware. I think that it just gives this knife just a punch of color that's really nice and breaks up the monotony of the colors there. Both of these knives are super nice. Let's talk about how they EDC and how they compare and what might be my choice if I was going to pick one of these guys. So the smoothness of the Hati cannot be denied. That is just a fun thing about it. I enjoy opening and closing this. You can do it all day without fatiguing your hand. We all know that that's a thing. If you're watching this video, you probably have a flipper that you just sit there and flip all day. You can do that with this knife and you're not going to hurt your hand. It's got a nice cutout here where the titanium is raised from the carbon fiber side, so it's easy to close, it's smooth. There is not an aggressive amount of jimping on the flipper, and there's no jimping on the body here, so you can flip this thing all day, every day, without hurting your finger, without really developing a bad callus. Now, I've got some calluses on my fingers from doing this so many times with so many knives. The Riot, on the other hand, has a much more aggressive detent, and you do have to give it a little bit harder of a push. Now, it's not painful by any means, but it does take a lot more effort. There's not a significantly raised portion of titanium on this side, so you just kind of have to jam your thumb in there and push those pieces apart. It works every time, but it's not quite as ergonomic in terms of the flipping. I think that the flipper is placed really well, but I think that if they had rounded this sharp corner off a little bit more, it might be truly perfect. But it does fire every single time. The detent is much stronger on this knife. So when you break that detent, let's find it, there. Every time you break that detent, that knife is going to open. The Hati has a much looser detent, and you can just half fire it if you're an inexperienced knife flipper. But if you know what you're doing, you're going to get it out there every single time. Very smooth. These knives weigh a little bit different here, so I'm going to go ahead and bring out the scale. We can compare that. Alright. I'm not sure if it's going to show up on the screen here, but in terms of ounces, for the Riot/Liong Mah, we've got 4.73. For the Hati, we've got 4.04. So the Hati comes in with a bigger blade and a lighter weight, close to an ounce lighter weight, 0.8 ounces. So very cool there. A lot of blade for a very light weight. Now it's got a little bit less titanium. You can see that the scales are thinner. Maybe it's hard to appreciate because of the milling on the Riot, but definitely less titanium material on the Hati. There has been some milling done on this knife on the inside there to lighten things up a little bit. You can see that little cutout right here at the base. On the Riot knife, not quite as much milling, but there has been a little bit done in there as well. Both of them come with a backspacer construction, so very solid construction. The Hati has a little space for a lanyard if you want to use one, and the Riot has a hole in there. I think I prefer the Shirogorov solution there. I think that when people tap and drill a hole into the frame of their beautiful knife, that it does kind of detract a little bit from the knife overall. I don't use lanyards, and so I don't mind if there's not even a lanyard hole at all. So we're coming in here to the closing statements. Let's talk about what I think of these knives. The Hati S30V titanium frame lock, the Riot S35VN titanium frame lock, carbon fiber. If I was going to pick one of these knives to have and to keep in my collection, I would go with the Hati. And I say that for a number of reasons. The Hati is more user-friendly. I think that this is more of a knife that you could use in an everyday carry situation. You wouldn't feel as bad using it, even though it does come in at quite a few $100s more expensive than the Riot over here. This was about somewhere in the 400s to 500s, and this one is somewhere in the 700s to 900s kind of a range. But still, this comes with a bit more functionality to it. I think that the Liong Mah design here is a bit more of a looker rather than a user. I think that that tip will prevent it from being used heavily, even though it's constructed in that overbuilt kind of a fashion. This knife is also a little bit more aggressive in terms of its appearance. I said in my review video that I feel like this knife, its primary concern is tactical slash sort of assault. I don't know how to explain it, but that Persian style blade, the very aggressive forward finger choil, means to me that it's more designed for tactical uses in personal defense, whereas this one is smoother all around, not all that aggressive of a finger choil here, and a more functional EDC shaped blade. So if I were going to choose one, my choice would be the Hati for its usefulness and for its construction and basically its ease of use all the time. Like I mentioned about that flipping action, I could do that all day and never get tired. This one you're going to get kind of tired of because you have to work a little bit harder to get that going. But I will not deny that both of these knives are beautifully constructed, really high quality. Again, it's an exciting time to be in the world of folding pocket knives. Things are just getting better and better on a daily basis. We've got companies coming out of China creating incredibly high quality blades. If you follow my channel, you know I've had a Wee knife. I love the Reich knives. I'm somewhat interested in some Kaisers, not really so much. We'll see if they have one that I really like. And certainly the world knows about the quality of the Shirogorov company. Their custom division creates some spectacular knives, and their production line has these limited production blades that you can pick up direct from their website or from dealers. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. These are two very similar knives, sort of on paper and on the screen, but once you get them in hand, you can see the minor differences that make maybe one of them better for your EDC. And perhaps there's somebody out there with a lot of money who's trying to decide between these two blades. So I wanted to make this video, get them on camera, because both of them are going across the world again. This Shirogorov is going to fly back across the Atlantic to Greece to my good friend Nico, who bought this from Nick Shabazz. This is going to travel by way of the Frunkey. And then this Riot is going to head to a new home in Southern California. I do hope that the new owner loves this knife as much as we did. It is a perfect blade, and both of these knives are spectacular. So these are some lucky individuals who are keeping these in their collections. If you enjoy my videos, guys, click like and subscribe. I hope I'm doing what you like, and if you're enjoying it, come back for more. Check out the other videos on my channel. There's certainly more to come. As always, guys, this is Dr. Frunkey saying take care.